Do you have the need? The need for speed? Then take the highway to the danger zone and watch your wingman's tail. That's right, I'm talking about the Tom Cruise classic that launched him to mega stardom. Yes, it's Cocktail. Not actually. I just wanted to say cocktail on a major YouTube channel. Hi, Dad. I've finally made it. Top Gun Maverick is in theaters this month after a long delay in both production and then release. After 36 years, we are returning to the cockpit with Pete Maverick Mitchell, and once again, meeting the young pilots of Top Gun Academy. However, before we see the new film, let's take a look at the movie that launched 1,000 tropes and cemented Tom Cruise as an action hero. There's a lot behind the scenes, and a lot more that has rippled out since its blockbuster debut in the early summer of 1986. I'm Chris Goodmakers with ScreenRant, and I'm here to talk about the original Top Gun. Spoilers for a 36-year-old film.
Goose is gone.
No.
I know.
Top Gun is part of the legendary Don Simpson-Jerry Bruckheimer pairing. These two action masters are behind classics like The Rock, Crimson Tide, and Flashdance. The producers began working on Top Gun's development after reading a magazine article on the pilots living in Fightertown, USA. They hired several screenplay writers, and eventually the shooting script was a mishmash of 3 different screenplays and everybody's favorite bastion of artistic integrity, the US Navy. Tony Scott was hired to direct a film about fighter jets based on his car commercial featuring a fighter jet. Despite being the brother of famous director Ridley Scott, Tony only had one credited film to his name with the sultry David Bowie vampire movie, The Hunger. After Top Gun, Tony Scott went on to direct some of the best action movies of all time, including Man on Fire and True Romance. Tom Cruise was cast as Maverick, the hotshot lead of the movie. The young actor's star was very much on the rise, but he hadn't really become an action hero yet. Audiences mostly knew the actor for sliding around in his underwear. Just the year before, Cruise's career was almost cut short by the financial and critical failure of Legend. Legend was directed by Tony Scott's brother, Ridley Scott. Top Gun was the top-grossing film of 1986. Thanksgiving at the Scott household that year was a little extra gloaty for Tony. Co-starring with Cruise is Anthony Edwards as the ill-fated Goose. Edwards went on to large success with a long-running role on the television series ER, and has since been working steadily in television. Miles Teller is playing Goose's son in the new movie, having inherited his father's mustache in The Will. Val Kilmer plays Iceman, whose rivalry with Maverick is a key plot in the film. Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer share an undeniable on-screen
I am dangerous.
tension. The unintentional romantic themes of the movie have also been the subject of much speculation and comedy in the decades since, but it is honestly driven by the pair's fantastic on-screen chemistry. Their rivals to comrades arc has been replicated in many movies since, but it's a core part of what made Top Gun popular. Top Gun was released on May 16th, 1986, and broke box office records. It was a massive success and stayed at #1 for 6 weeks, which is almost unheard of today. Tom Cruise was officially a movie star. He would never allow himself to look this short on screen again. Alright viewer, I know you didn't come to this video for dry box office numbers. I sure as hell didn't. You came for one reason. Sweet fighter jets! With direct aid and access from the Navy and the Air Force, Top Gun featured exclusive and unprecedented footage of top-of-the-line aircraft. These pieces of hardware were flown during filming by active pilots for the Air Force. The film paid upwards of $7,800 an hour in fuel costs. That's the equivalent of around $18,000 an hour today. The fuel costs were only outweighed by the massive amounts of oil needed for the volleyball scene. Other than Maverick, the hero of the film is the then top-of-the-line Grumman F-14 Tomcat. Wikipedia states that the F-14 is a American carrier-capable supersonic, twin-engine, two-seat, twin-tail, variable sweep-wing fighter aircraft. I call it super rad. In active service with the US military from 1974 to its official retirement in 2006, the Tomcat is one of the most iconic fighter jets in history. It's been deployed in war zones across the globe and has been featured in popular culture for decades. Its distinctive adjustable wings and twin engines cut a fearsome silhouette. Top Gun popularized the plane, and since its retirement, several models have been put on display across the United States. The Tomcat may be the hero of Top Gun, but the villains are just as important. A large plot point revolves around the new MiG-28. What's a MiG-28? Well, your guess is as good as mine, because the aircraft is entirely fictional. MiG is a designation for a certain Russian-built aircraft, specifically the Russian manufacturer Mikoyan. There's a long history of various MiG aircrafts dating back to the 1940s. My specialty is being a repository for endless amounts of film trivia. So Russian military aircraft history is not my strength. However, that's fine, because there are no actual MiGs in this movie. Playing the role of the fictional aircraft is the very real Northrop F-5F Tiger II. Its black paint job and red star were added specifically for the film. Variations of the F-5 were in active service from their deployment in the early 1960s. It's a fixed-wing supersonic aircraft that has been used in the air forces of dozens of nations across the globe. Its wide use makes it a good fit for an enemy fighter that Maverick can triumphantly defeat in the film's climax. The other enemy of the film are the jets flown by the instructors at Top Gun. The characters played by Michael Ironside and Tom Skerritt take to the skies to challenge their students in Douglas A-4 Skyhawks. An older aircraft than the F-14s they're engaging, the Skyhawk is a subsonic jet. It's fitting to the film's plot that the expert teachers choose a slower fighter to give their students every advantage. It makes the students' inevitable defeat all the more educational. One final iconic piece of military hardware, though it's not exactly as maneuverable as an F-14, it's maybe a little more famous.
It is the Enterprise.
The CVN-65 USS Enterprise is the now decommissioned aircraft carrier that served from 1961 to 2017. That's over 55 years of active service. The carrier, which is often called the Big E, was the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. It was also the 8th ship to bear the legendary name in the US Navy. There are enterprises dating back to the Revolutionary War. Since the Big E's retirement, the next enterprise, designated CVN-80, has been under construction at the shipyards in Newport News, Virginia. The Enterprise was made available for filming during Top Gun's production. Tony Scott was on board filming one scene when the carrier made a course change. This changed the light for filming. When Scott asked to change it back, he was informed that it would cost taxpayers $25,000 to move the massive city-sized aircraft carrier.
Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash.
Tony Scott pulled out his checkbook and effectively paid the full operating costs of the USS Enterprise for the next 5 minutes. That's the equivalent of $60,000 today. Production could afford it, as this was a Simpson-Bruckheimer joint, and they had Flashdance money. I'll admit that before this video, I hadn't watched Top Gun in literally decades, so I found myself having a very interesting problem with almost every scene. I kept expecting it to end in an hysterical and unexpected gag. When Maverick was riding his motorcycles next to a flying jet, I kept expecting him to suddenly and violently hit a series of speed bumps. Then I realized I had seen Hot Shots a lot more as a kid. Top Gun was a massive hit film that rippled pretty heavily across the culture, so naturally we would get a 5 years late spoof from one half of the Airplane duo. Jim Abrams released Hot Shots in 1991, Starring Charlie Sheen, the spoof takes direct aim at Top Gun. The parody recreates many scenes from the hit film and ends them with some amazing jokes. Spoof films have a very bad reputation these days, what with the late period works of Marlon Wayans and the various genre movies that plague the mid-2000s. But rest assured, viewers, Hot Shots is from the golden age of spoofs.
At ease, man.
It's also strangely not the only film that's a copy of Top Gun where Carrie Elways plays the blonde-haired antagonist. May I present Days of Thunder. It's Top Gun with NASCAR. The movie plays out almost beat for beat as its predecessor, and this is intentional. Starring Tom Cruise as well, the movie is also directed by Top Gun's Tony Scott. Scott and Cruise reunited with action producers Simpson and Bruckheimer to release the motorsports film in the early summer of 1990. Tom Cruise had more influence over the plot this time, even gaining a co-writer credit on the film's screenplay. I'm hardly the first person to point out the similarities between these two movies, but it is undeniable Cruise's character has a lot more development in the later film. The film is an intentional redo of Top Gun, but with some hindsight about needing to give its protagonist important features like a character arc and likability. Days of Thunder is a spiritual successor to Top Gun in almost every way, and if you're planning on watching the original film before seeing Top Gun Maverick, then try to make room in your schedule to check this one out too. Plus, then you can say you've seen two movies where John C. Reilly plays a member of a NASCAR team.
I love you! What? Nothing!
Even if you've never seen Top Gun, you've heard the screaming rock amp-up song that is Dangerzone. This hit song has been copied and parodied and ironically used for decades, but it is undeniably a banger. The song's cultural impact is arguably larger than the movie itself, but the two are inexorably linked. It's hard to talk about the movie without bringing up the song, mostly because Top Gun itself plays it almost as many times as love ballad Take My Breath Away. Take My Breath Away was not a certified banger. Apologies to 80s moms everywhere, mine included. Hi Mom! Sung by Kenny Loggins, the rock anthem was composed by legendary electronic musician Giorgio Moroder. Yeah, the guy from that one Daft Punk track.
But everybody calls me Giorgio.
Moroder supplied the amazing beat, but the famous Dangerzone lyrics were by Tom Whitlock. Whitlock wrote Dangerzone as well as Take My Breath Away. The later song won Giorgio and Whitlock an Oscar and a Golden Globe. The pair composed 5 original songs for Top Gun, and the soundtrack shot to the top of the charts. To this day, it remains one of the all-time best-selling soundtracks. Take My Breath Away may have won awards, but Dangerzone is still very much in the culture. Since the 80s, it has been used to comedic effect in television series like Archer and Parks and Recreation.
Highway to the calzone zone.
Over the years, the song has become symbolic of bravado in the face of intense action and danger. It's the musical equivalent of the hero walking away from an explosion and not looking back. Top Gun's tone owes a lot to its soundtrack, and Dangerzone enforces the unpredictability of being a combat pilot. The music video ties directly in with the film and was also directed by Tony Scott. While it has exciting clips from the movie, somebody should probably tell Kenny Loggins that if he wants to take the highway to the danger zone, he'll need to leave his bedroom first. In the 90s, Canada's Wonderland became Paramount Canada's Wonderland, which gave them access to the studio's IP. Later, the theme park opened Top Gun, the roller coaster. This high-speed coaster leaves your legs free dangling as it whips you around at almost 80 kph. Wonderland lost the Paramount branding a long time ago, but Top Gun still stands. It's been renamed to the more copyright-friendly Flight Deck and is honestly showing its age. But that just makes it more fun to ride. I believe there's also one in California, but that one's probably less fun because its steel frame hasn't had to bear the force of 3 decades of Ontario winters. This isn't super tied into the movie, but I just wanted to brag that I've ridden this sucker a few times. It's not a lot because I'll admit, my favorite attraction at Wonderland was always the Coca-Cola refreshment zone. For non-Ontario residents, that's a covered kiosk full of Coke vending machines that occasionally sprays a cool mist from the ceiling. I like to live on the edge. Given how successful and influential Top Gun was at the time, it's surprising that it's taken this long to get a sequel. While it never was a deep film, the movie's influence on cinema and pop culture is massive. Its certified blockbuster status propelled both Tom Cruise and Tony Scott to household names. Tony Scott's last film before his tragic death was the highly underrated thriller Unstoppable. The runaway train feature stars Denzel Washington and Chris Pine and was a fitting last movie for the adrenaline-loving director. It's a shame that Top Gun Maverick will be lacking his distinctive style. Scott made every scene feel like it was 100 degrees and put audiences on the edge of their seats during the climactic dogfight. Since its release, Cruise has gone on to be one of the single most famous actors of all time. Say what you will about his recent works and his career as a whole, but you can't argue that he still brings charisma and energy to every role. We all know what the single greatest moment of his career was, though.
Why you all in my ear talking a whole bunch of shit that I ain't trying